What is up, everybody? Welcome to Livestream. Welcome on a Monday evening. What happened today? Anything interesting happened today? Yeah, it was an eclipse. Yeah. I got some photos of the eclipse. They're not uploaded yet, so I can just show them to you here on my phone. Hold on. Yeah. Oh, hang on. I can't do it. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, that's pretty much what it looked like. It was cloudy. I did vaguely get to see, like, some occlusion of the sun through a tiny break in the clouds for, like, 1 minute. The good news was I didn't need the eclipse goggles, because the clouds were my eclipse goggles. God provided eclipse goggles to me. I was staring up there and going, if the clouds were to actually open up right now, like, I'd be blinded. But they didn't. So, there you go. Blunty, how was the weather down where you were?
It's all right. I don't know.
Did you see?
I don't care. No, I did not.
Don't care about the eclipse?
No, I was sleeping.
You slept through the eclipse? I guess you sleep. Yeah, okay.
I mean, yeah, it's not
fair enough. I mean, it is what it is.
Not exciting.
I mean, it's a little exciting. I mean, I'm with you.
Different things we're excited by. I will say that.
Yeah, you play Russian Russian fishing simulator. That's exciting. Everybody's excited by different things. Yeah. All right, fair enough. I only say that because, as far as I can tell, that game involves a lot of just sitting around doing nothing, much like real fishing. In that respect, it is a accurate simulation of fishing.
It's a good podcast game.
It's a good podcast game. Yeah. You told me. I know we talked about this, but I'm reminded. You told me that you had to upgrade your graphics card so you could play a different game in the foreground while you were waiting for a fish to bite in the background, playing Russian Drone Simulator. Or Russian Fishing Simulator. We had terrible weather here for the eclipse. And Knoxville was only like 80% occluded, which isn't, it's basically just feels like it's not quite twilight yet. For the last eclipse though, the whatever, 2017, I guess it was, I'm not sure. We were like right in the path of totality, and it was unreal. It was unreal. Unreal. Like, my wife drove. If I hadn't seen the 2017 one, I might have been more motivated to drive 5 or 6 hours to get to 100% totality, whatever the phrase is. My wife and my son actually drove up to Southern Illinois to get closer to it. It was unreal. I mean, it feels like, well, you see the sun go down every day, but here it gets darker as if the sun is going down, but the sun is still up in the sky. And there's all these things you associate with the sun going away. And it turns out like not all of them are a package. Like you get the experience of the sun going away without the sun getting low in the sky. So it's just really weird. Just really weird. We got a video here from Mupshot. Let's check out this video from Mupshot. Whooping the eclipse. I have is that the sun? It looks mighty dark. The eclipse has already happened, hasn't it, Mupshot? Yeah, you're already in the totality, I'm guessing. Yeah, it looks dark, all right. I mean, then you can see off in the distance. It looks like, you know what it looks like? It looks like there's a sunset all around you. That's kind of crazy. Like you can see the sun on the horizon in every direction. That's crazy. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Well worth. I mean, not like you're going to get a chance. And for the next one, like 2044 or something. Anyway, welcome to the live stream, everybody. We will be talking about more than just the eclipse. We'll be talking about FPV and drones and all those fun things. And mostly what we'll be doing is answering your questions. You're going to ask questions here in the chat. Blunty's going to queue them up. You're going to ask questions here in the Discord. Hello, patrons in the Discord. Hello, patrons in the Discord. Thanks for being patrons. Thanks for paying my bills. Am I right? Oh, Blunty's going to be given. Blunty, today the Discord priority multiplier for patrons is 1.37. Okay, got that? File that away. Thank you. Blunty knows what that means. Got to give him a little bit of priority. And if you want to make sure I read your question, hit the $ down here and leave a super chat. There was a question about. Did you not think that was a good question, Blunty? Where's the question about the Lance?
It's queued up. It's second on the list.
It is queued. Oh, okay. I missed it. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was surprised you didn't find that interesting. It turns out you did. Let's get this question from Wisemac, who says, could you file a Lance flight plan to send your drone above the clouds to see the eclipse? How does that work for a Part 107? There's a couple things I think that are getting mixed up here just a little bit. Lance, L-A-A-N-C. I'm not going to nitpick your spelling, but I'm going to spell it correctly. Lance is for getting permission to fly in controlled airspace. So if you want to fly your drone in controlled airspace, sometimes you can file a Lance for Lance approval. And basically that tells the air traffic controllers who are managing that airspace that you're going to be flying your drone, well, really near their airspace. Like you're not going to get to fly literally in a flight path of like an airport. But sometimes you could be like closer to the airport than you normally would be, but still close to the ground and below where any of the planes are going to be. And Lance is the system that's used to get approval to do that. If you wanted to fly above the clouds, you would be exceeding the 400-foot ceiling, and you would be probably beyond visual line of sight. And both of those things would require a waiver from the FAA, not just Lance approval, an actual waiver. And that involves submitting paperwork and like It might be, a 60 or a 90-day turnaround, and you probably wouldn't get approved anyway. Now that I've said all that, I'm going to give Blunty a chance to correct or maybe just agree with anything I've said. Because Blunty, I know you know a lot of these rules a little better than I do through your work with the FPV Freedom Coalition. How'd I do?
Fine. I'll just say you don't. It's not as archaic as filing paperwork. You can file it through the FAA drone zone, but it is basically fill out forms for the waivers that you need. If you Google or look for the FAA website, Part 107 waivers, there's a waivers page that gives you a list of the waivers and exceptions you would need. You would need both the elevation and BVLOS, which I believe are both 107.51, but it says they're on the list. And then you just go to Drone Zone and submit a waiver for 107.51 and the dates and times you would be doing the thing. And then whether it's approved or not, that's a whole nother thing. I don't think that many of those waivers get approved, but I could be wrong and that might have changed. So.
Yeah. And it's not just like tick a box, yes, you're good. Like it's the kind of thing where they're going to want to be like, okay, well, what's your safety plan? They're going to want to it's an essay question, not a multiple choice. Is that correct or no?
I have never filed one.
You just tick the box.
But if you want to know, you can definitely check out FAA Drone Zone where you've already registered legally, of course, because you're 107, and you can go on there and add your stuff.
And what about a recreational pilot? Was there any chance of a recreational pilot getting such a waiver, or is it only for 107?
I don't believe there are official waivers for recreational pilots to do flights.
Okay.
There at least is not a page on the FAA, and there's not like a process I know of. Like Drone Zone does not include a section for recreational waivers that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. So there's more archaic ins and outs about the U.S. drone laws, choose drone regulations. I want to, and Blunty, I'm going to call an audible on this one, Blunty. Usually, Blunty is entirely in charge of what goes on the Livestream Clips channel. He decides what's worth putting up and what isn't. I guess I'm not going to literally request that you do this. If you don't have to tell me right now, but if you go, what you should do is you should just decide not to do it and then not do it if you don't want to, and just don't tell me and I'll never mention it again. But I'm gonna bring up a comment here related to this sort of thing. Hold on. He's not going to put it up as a live stream clip, I suspect. It's in a comment. It would be, I know I replied to this. Wow, I can't find this comment. Did it get deleted? That's interesting. Hold on. It was on this video. I pinned it. Maybe he saw that I pinned it, and he was like, oh, I'm embarrassed. I'm going to delete it. I'm here with... Hold on. He did! I think he deleted it. That's hilarious. That's okay. That's okay. This comment gets made regularly. I can find the last time it happened, and I can still do it. Okay, so here is hold on. Such a setup. Okay. So every time I talk about remote ID, someone leaves a comment like this. Oh, that's a little too far zoomed in. There we go. They say, hey, everybody, government overreach. You know what you should do is vote. And typically they say vote Republican. And I want to be really clear. I keep politics almost entirely off this stream, off this channel, because, we're here to talk about drones. I'm not here to muddy the waters and piss everybody off. But in as much as politics directly intersect with drones, I crack the door and I talk about politics. But that's not an invitation for you to bust the door open and talk about all the other bullshit that we would all rather leave behind. Fair enough? But they say, oh, yes, just another example. Remote ID is just another example of the left-wing Democrats infringing your freedoms. And I'd like to point out, not 2016, actually, that's a typo. It's 2018. No. Something. What happened? Did something happen in 2016? Because I know the FAA Reauthorization Act was in 2018. I'm not sure what I think was happening in 2016. I might have been slightly off base there. But I know for a fact that the FAA Reauthorization Act, which mandated that remote ID become a thing, was passed in 2018, during which a Republican was president and both houses of Congress were controlled by Republicans. So, if you think that, and it's just because I get this comment so often, vote Republican, remote ID is bad, remote ID is a blame to the Democrats. And it's just so wrong that I feel like calling it out every freaking time, and now I've called it out here on the stream. And by the way, then Biden didn't do anything about it either. It's not like he went, oh, this is an oversight, I'm going to withdraw it. So if you want to hate Democrats because they didn't fix remote ID either, more power to you. More power to you. But 2018, all three of the bodies that were involved with passing this were controlled by Republicans. So it's not a Democratic thing. Jory, that specific comment didn't mention Republicans. And that comment, I read that comment as implying big government equals Democrats. But the specific comment that was deleted after I replied, and then he deleted it because he was so wrong. He couldn't stand it. Here we go. Boom. Yep. Hold on. Having some issues with the network. Let me see if that fixes it. It's sad. We are slowly having to succumb to government control over an RC hobby. Go Trump. He'll get rid of this madness. He's the one who signed it in 2018. What makes you think he'll get rid of it? It's so ludicrous. It's so ludicrous. Vote for who you want to vote for. Vote for who you want to vote for whatever reason you want to vote for them. That we're not going to get into on this live stream. But so many people are like, remote ID, I hate it. You know what? I'm going to vote for Trump. I'm going to vote for the Republicans. They'll fix this. They did it. And if the Democrats had been in charge during that time, they would have done it too. No one has the moral high ground here. But that's my point. No one has the moral high ground here. So, okay. Blunty is showing me the 2000. Thank you, Blunty, for your original research. Here's the 2016 thing. I could never find this, Blunty. Thank you so much. This is the FAA Extension, Safety, and Security Act of 2016. How did that relate to remote ID? Do you know off the top of your head? Or?
If you Control F remote ID, you'll see it pop up.
Oh, okay. So this is where it started. The administrator of the FAA, blah, 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 requirements for remote identification of unmanned aircraft systems. So this is the first time it started? Is that your opinion?
I believe this is the first mention, and they passed a document, like it became law document. And then from there, that pushed the Reauth Act, because this basically told them they had to do it. And then the Reauth put into form that this is how you're going to get, this is where the money comes from or whatever. This is what your requirements are as the FAA. And then that caused the NPRM for remote ID, and that caused the final rule for remote ID. Okay.
So great, perfect. Because I don't want this to sound like I'm picking a side, because I've only picked on the people who were in power in 2018, which turns out they were Republicans. 2016, that was Obama. And if I remember right, one of the houses of Congress was Democratic and one was Republican. So we had two Democratic bodies and one Republican body mandating remote ID in 2016. No one has the high ground here. Vote for who you want to vote for, but stop saying, in my comment section specifically, stop saying, oh, if you only vote for my team, they would have fixed this. History shows that's not true. Okay. Okay. So ridiculous. Alrighty. Moving on. How do I know if my O3 module is broken or if it's the antennas or the camera? See, we're going to go right into this. Trial and error. It's probably not the cameras. I mean, I don't know what your symptoms are, so I can't say for sure, but it's probably not the cameras. The camera will make your picture be messed up, but not make you have, like, weak signal. So depending on what the symptoms are, I would just start swapping the antennas or buy a second quadcopter or a second O3 and swap it out and see if that fixed it. But trial and error is the answer. BurbExe says, I sent you an email earlier, but I was wondering if you know where I could find sound effects for my FPV footage. I've been struggling to find a centralized resource. Do you mean sound effects? Do you mean music? Joshua H. says, no one listened when you said this isn't an open door. All right. No, we're not going to do politics, though. We're not going to do it. Okay? Except in as much as it directly relates to FPV, which my thing did. Hey, JB, I've been struggling to find a centralized sound resource. I use Epidemic Sound. It's a paid service. That's where I get music. Cool. Yeah, Epidemic Sound is what I use. But it's a paid service, so I think most people who don't make like a job out of it probably wouldn't want to do that. Just Foley. Oh, burb.exe. I don't know where you can get Foley audio for drone stuff because drone sounds are so unique. Like if you're thinking about things like you're chasing a mountain bike and you know the sound of the tires and the sound of the chain and the sound of the pedals, you got to collect that stuff. You got to become a Foley, not a Foley artist, but you have to record the B-roll, if you will, the sound on site. If you're talking about generic stuff like a whoosh or a swoosh, you know, or an explosion, like there's audio libraries. I would probably go to Adobe Stock because I already have an Adobe subscription. But once again, that's only because I do this professionally. Let's see. There's a question here from Cycle Law who says, does anyone know if the DJI Integra goggles and the RC2 will be compatible with the new Avata 2? Yeah, someone knows. Someone knows. But they can't tell you. Sorry. Just felt like rubbing it in. You're going to have to wait. Sorry.
Release is on the 11th, so.
Allegedly.
No, officially for DJI.
As far as you know. I just have to be an asshole. Why pay an Adobe sub when Premiere Pro is free? How is Premiere Pro free? Is Premiere Pro free?
I think he's talking about pirating it.
Oh, yeah, no. No. First of all, anyway, no, just no. Let's get some super chats. Way to go, Super Deluxe. Hey. There was somebody in Tennessee who started shooting a rifle off an overpass into traffic during the eclipse because that's what she thought was appropriate to do during an eclipse. Oh, it's crazy. Let's get some super chats. I'm in a silly mood today. Joshua H, thank you for a $10 super chat. I switched to Express LRS thanks to your video. It was super easy to get set up. I did have issues because my desktop is hardwired, but I used the phone to connect the ARCs to the local network and the rest was butter. Yeah, Joshua H, so you can use your phone. My computer also doesn't have a built-in Wi-Fi. Like, I know a lot of motherboards have built-in Wi-Fi, mine does not. And like the idea that I had a computer that didn't have a built-in Wi-Fi chip kind of was upsetting and confusing and distressing. And I immediately went to Amazon and bought a little USB Wi-Fi chip. So that I could connect to Express LRS when I wanted to. So, that'll work. And then that also means that when you connect to the Express LRS Wi-Fi, you don't lose your internet connection because you have two separate adapters. SOS Death Valley, thank you for a $5 super chat. Do you think the store will carry the 20-centimeter cables for Walksnail Avatar Moonlight for 7-inch drones? Friend, I have to tell you, I just got done building. Oh, that was with the Medlin drone. I was going to say, if you're going to do something like the Medlin drone gimbal where the camera goes up and down, the 20-centimeter isn't even enough. You have to have the 30-centimeter. The 20-centimeter is just about perfect for a 7-inch, but it doesn't give you a lot of room to spare. And if you need anything additional, you would want to go longer. Do you think the store will carry? What store? I don't know what store you're asking about, so I can't answer that. Probably not. You probably have to order it.
I just saw a 20-centimeter come back in stock from somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking about one on the Discord, and they were out of stock for a while, but I think they just restocked at a couple places.
Well, and that was for Moonlight. Mine was for the O3, technically. Yeah, I was putting the Medlin drone gimbal on my Chimera 7, and the 200 millimeter was not long enough because you needed a little additional space for it to tilt up. And so I bought a 200 millimeter one, not realizing that the 200 was already what was on there. And in fact, I bought the 200 millimeter one and accidentally clicked 100. Like, I don't know how I did this, but I bought the 200 millimeter one and a 100 millimeter one came in the mail, and I went, "Fah!" And I bought a 200 millimeter one and it came in the mail, and it was exactly the same length as the one that was already in there, and it wasn't long enough. And I went, "Ah!" And then I bought the 300 millimeter one and it finally worked. It wanted to just, it was so bad. It was so bad. Oh. Hello, Roy Kositsky. New to FPV is whoop flying good for noobs. Thank you for $2, Roy. Roy, any flying is good. Tiny whoops are very hard to fly indoors. Like, a lot of people fly tiny whoops in their house because they're small and they don't damage the walls and they won't break things. That's way harder than you think it is. So if you take a tiny whoop outdoors and fly it outside, the problem there is it's going to get blown around really badly by the wind, although it is possible to do it. A tiny whoop isn't my recommendation as the first drone a brand new noob should get. I recommend that people start in the simulator and get moderately competent in the simulator, and then I would say get something like a 3-inch or a 3.5 inch, or just go straight to a 5-inch, but just do it safely and responsibly. You know, a tiny whoop, I think, is like, if that's what you want, then more power to you. But it's a little bit bad outdoors if there's any wind, and it's really tough to fly indoors unless you're talking about like a great big, like an auditorium or something. So it wouldn't be my first choice. Todd Huish, thank you for a $10 super chat. My SpeedyBee F7 V3 has a 4v5 output for GPS, but I have the HDLRC M100 and it needs to be 5 volts. Good news, 4v5 is 5 volts. it's almost guaranteed that any 5-volt accessory will work fine on the 4v5. The reason they call it 4v5 is because it has a diode which protects the USB port from backfeeding the rest of the 5-volt rail. And that diode causes a little bit of voltage drop. You'll typically measure about 4.7 volts on the 4v5 pad, but like there's a very good chance that it'll be fine. Because most things that say, it's the M100, most things that say they're 5-volt rated are actually fine down to 4.5 volts. It's not literally 5.000 volts. So here's that GPS. It says 5 volts, but look, boom, power input, 3.3 to 5 volts. You're fine. It takes all the way down to 3.3 volts. You're fine. So run it off the 4v5 and enjoy your life. Also run the receiver off 4v5, by the way. I see Fabio Pancero there in the chat. Hello, Fabio. You're staying up late again for the stream. Good to see you, sir. Fabio's my editor. He recently had his first flights of a real drone. He sent me some pictures. Hold on. I have to scroll through all the work-related talk we had. And, he broke it. Hey, there's Fabio. Out in the beautiful Swiss countryside. Speaking some language I don't really understand. And there he goes. And now it's just nothing at this point. It's just, where is it? Beautiful Swiss mountains, and somewhere out there there's a drone. If you go down to that grass, it's going to be bad. You're not going to find it. It's going to be tough. Anyway, good for you, Fabio. Proud of you. Now I should learn to color grade, as long as we're trading skills, right? No. Yep, that's an FPV pilot, all right. Oh. Kristaps Andersons, thank you for a €5 super chat. I'm from Latvia. Just got married yesterday. Congratulations. We'll be spending honeymoon in Texas. Oh, what do I need to know to take and fly my Nazgul there? Not very much. Legally? Texas doesn't even recognize the federal government, so you're good to go. The FAA has no jurisdiction. Right, Plenty? Is that right? No, I'm sorry. Don't. I don't. That's just mean. You're supposed to take the trust test, TRUST. Is he supposed to register as a hobbyist? I think so. So the first thing you're supposed to do is you're supposed to take the trust test, TRUST. You just search for that at FAA.gov, the trust test, and then there's a page about this. Information for international UAS operators in the United States. You should read this page. Okay? And these are the things you need to do if you want to be legal. Which I assume is why you asked. Okay. Barton Fink, thank you for a $5 super chat. If my battery voltage is really low, but I still have over half my milliamp hours available when I land, what does it mean? It means that your belief about how many milliamp hours your battery has is incorrect. Okay? Battery voltage is how you know when your battery's empty. Period. Period. Think of it this way. Let's say that your gas gauge on your car says that your tank is half empty. And then suddenly your car goes sputter, 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 and stops and stalls out. You're out of gas. It doesn't matter. Your gas gauge was wrong, right? Your milliamp hours is just an estimation of how many milliamp hours the battery can provide. If the battery is old, if the battery has high internal resistance, if it's cold outside, you'll get less milliamp hours. In my opinion, you should be first and foremost be looking at your voltage. That's a fact. Because when the voltage gets down to, for a lithium polymer battery, around 3.2, 3.3 volts, for a lithium ion battery, around 3.0 volts, you're very close to the end of your flight, no matter how many milliamp hours you think you've pulled. The other thing to keep in mind is that the current sensor, the milliamp hours are based on the current sensor, and a lot of the time the current sensor is not calibrated. If I really cared about accurate milliamp hours, I would calibrate the current sensor so that the milliamp hours wouldn't be known to be accurate. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that you can't trust what's on the label of the battery. The battery says it's 5,000 milliamp hours. Well, you need to verify that that's correct. The place where milliamp hours become really important is when you need to know if you're going to get where you're going or if you're going to be able to get home. So let's say you're doing a long-range flight, which is totally not legal in the United States. But let's say you're outside the USA, you're visiting Mexico, and you're going to do a 20-kilometer flight. And you start flying and you go 1 kilometer, and you've used a quarter of your milliamp hours. Well, obviously, you're not going to make 20 kilometers, and you're going to turn around and come home. Let's say you're flying and you're halfway through your flight, and you're thinking, should I turn around and come home, or should I keep going? You can't answer those questions with battery voltage alone. You have to know milliamp hours. But for that to work, you need to know that your milliamp hours are accurate. You need to have your current sensor calibrated, and you need to know how many milliamp hours are actually in the battery. And only through experience will you know those things and be able to work with them. So probably the milliamp hours you're seeing are just completely off for any of these reasons. James Thomas, thank you for a $5 super chat. Is a HD 745 flight controller that much better than an F722? An H745. There's a couple big advantages of an H745, some of which you might not care about. For most people, the answer is no, it doesn't really matter. The 745 doesn't really have a big advantage. H745 flight controllers can usually run ArduPilot, which is kind of cool if you want to try out ArduPilot on a little drone without buying an expensive flight controller. H745 have the ability to do audio and video processing on the chip. So an H745 flight controller could manage the OSD without a separate chip. There are very few flight controllers that actually do that. Most H745 flight controllers will have the OSD chip on there as well and just do the OSD the traditional way. But like the SP Racing H7 flight controller from Dominic Clifton uses... It's not Pixel OSD. Is it Pixel OSD, Blunty? Do you know? There were two software-based OSD solutions.
Dominic Clifton wrote Pixel OSD, so I would assume it's that.
Yeah, there's another one out there that's different, but I don't remember the name of it. It was the FreeSky backed one.
Wasn't that just Pixel OSD?
Was that Pixel OSD? What's the other one? I thought it was
just like a fork or another Pixel OSD.
Which one does Newbie Drone use?
B-Sign OSD? That's their
one.
Garbage.
Yeah, that's...
Okay.
I didn't say garbage. You said garbage.
I
didn't say garbage. Okay, fine.
B-Sign's garbage.
I'm going to get a letter from Newbie Drone.
Good, you can reply in nice letterhead, get rid of your BS. That's what you can say.
I do think that software...
And BS stands for B-Sign.
I would say I do think that their software-based OSD is kind of glitchy and makes things worse. I wouldn't call it garbage. I would on a live stream.
I would
spontaneously
use a chip. Use a normal chip like everyone else, or use
they're
the
trying
Pixel
to
as
save,
your other solutions that are already available.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
Trying to save money on what? The more expensive whoops than other people?
No, they're trying to save. They're trying to save PCB space.
Because all the other AIOs are so much bigger.
Fair enough. The HC745 doesn't have a lot of practical benefit for most people. The big thing I would buy an H7455 for is the ability to run ArduPilot. But at that point, I kind of might be tempted to just run a more ArduPilot specific flight controller. That's what I would say. Delta Foxtrot, how does the DJI FPV batteries get such long flight times? Thank you for a $5 super chat. One way it does it is by overcharging them. I knew a guy once upon a time who was designing his own aircraft. And one of the things he did, and you're going to think this is dumb when you hear it, but this is the kind of sort of hacker he was. He would buy, I think he was using the FPV drone. This was back when the FPV drone came out. He would buy the charging circuit, the chargers for the FPV drone batteries. He would break them open and he would take the receptacles out of them and use them. He would put them in a 3D print so he could take the DJI FPV drone batteries, click, and slot them into his drone. Why did he do it that way? Why didn't he just use lipos? You kind of got to meet him to know. And I flew one of his drones and was shocked to see that the Betaflight OSD showed 4.5 volts. And I was like, what is this madness? And he said, yeah, DJI overcharges those batteries to 4.5 volts. And I went and researched it, and DJI overcharges a lot of their batteries in their battery packs. It turns out you can overcharge, especially, you can overcharge these cells. 4.2 volts has a lot of safety margin in it. And DJI has found ways to push that margin without burning people's houses down. So there you go. They also just have really, really good engineering. Where their quadcopters are very, very efficient. I agree with Super Deluxe. Please don't overcharge your batteries. You are not DJI.
I would also say, don't the DJI FPV batteries only let you do 200 and then they stop or something? They like count the amount of flights and they like there's some software that locks you out after a certain number of flights. I've seen people talking about that.
I don't know about that.
But I guess that's another way they could get away with overcharging, right? It's like, if I know my life of the battery, then
they'll retire. Yeah. Hang on one second. SOS Death Valley, thank you for a $10 super chat, and thank you. Ringler's TV, how do you get rid of wobble, low throttle wobble on a 5-inch? Thank you for $2, Ringler's TV. Make sure air mode is enabled and raise your idle speed a little bit. That's what I would say about that. Phonic, thank you for a $20 super chat. Very generous. Thanks to you and Blunty for doing what you do on this channel. Keep grinding, dudes. Thank you, Phonic, for the donation. We will keep grinding. Super Deluxe. Super Deluxe, I want to come to your party. Don't come to my party. My party's lame. My party is just a bunch of old people sitting around a fire pit, drinking beer and talking about what hurts today. I want to go to your party. Scott Besson, thank you for a $5 super chat. Would a cash prize at a race require a 107 and remote ID out of FRIA? Yeah. Cash. Oh, so like Scott, I'm as certain as I can be that racing with a prize on the line, cash or otherwise, is a 107 flight. Blunty, agree or disagree?
That's correct.
Because the rule is, I often say that in furtherance of a business interest is the threshold that I use, but that's not actually the FAA's consideration. The FAA's consideration is that any flight that is for any reason other than pure recreation. And so you go, well, what does that mean? And the bottom line is that as soon as compensation is involved, that is one of the gates that instantly causes it to be a 107 operation. Whether that compensation is cash, prizes, or some other form of consideration. So racing at a race where any prize is on the line is a 107 flight, 100%. And would therefore require remote ID even if the race field was a FRIA. Right, Blunty?
No. I don't think so.
If it's don't all 107 operations require remote ID?
You should talk to Dave about this. We had a conversation. I thought Dave was going to talk more with you about this. Well, no, I don't.
I thought he did. So
Our understanding after a heavy review of the law is that 107 does not require RID in a FRIA. There's nothing about the law that says that. Yeah.
Oh, no, we didn't have that
but
conversation.
That's not a statement we've put out anywhere. That's why I'm saying you should.
Well,
I'm saying that we haven't put it out anywhere, and we're not lawyers. I'm saying that right now with the statement.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So I had the belief, and Dave Messina of the FPV Freedom Coalition has convinced me. Well, has told me he believes this is incorrect. So preface this by saying this belief. Smarter people than me say this is incorrect. But what I used to believe was that all 107 operations required standard remote ID, that remote ID modules were not allowable under 107 ops. And Dave said that from the sort of weird sort of reading of the rules, it's that the manufacturer is required to put standard remote ID on the drone. But if they didn't, then the 107 operator can use a remote ID module, and they've sort of done their best, and Dave thinks that'll fly. Obviously, it's going to be your butt that the FAA hangs out to dry, not his. So take that for what it's worth. What you're telling me, Blunty, is you think that I would say that in a FRIA, the pilot is still obligated to use a remote ID module because 107
Well, you can't. Okay, here's the problem.
Yeah.
Because 107 is required to have standard RID in basically every case except the one you described.
Right.
You're not allowed to disable standard remote ID in the FRIA. That's in the rule.
Yep.
But nothing in the rule says you have to have remote ID active in the FRIA.
I thought
because you can use a module, we reviewed the law like 4 times. We sent it back between me and Alex and Dave and trying to figure out the difference, and that's where we landed. But again, we have not put that out because I don't know that for sure. But if you're asking me directly, I have to tell you what I think we know. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
So that's where I'm at. Yeah.
I
suspect the FAA might not even be sure, depending on who you ask.
I agree. And somebody's going to be the test case where the FAA goes, "Hey, F you."
Because there's definitely somebody at the FAA who thinks you can't put a module on your homemade drone because that's how the rules work. But there's also people who say it's dependent on the date that it's created. There's people who are going to say we don't have any proof of when it's created, so how would we know that, right? Because the manufacturing rules started on a certain date. So if you manufactured before that date, any drone before that date could come in. And then we get into ship a Theseus argument where, like, if you use the same frame, is that the same drone? If you use the same motors, is that the same drone? I've had the same motor since 2021. I know. So every drone doesn't need remote ID because it doesn't count because it's manufactured before that date. This is the stupid laws how all this stuff works.
Let me ask you this, and I know the chat really wants to spend like 45% of my live stream talking about remote ID, but I'm interested in this because I'm interested in not getting burned, and I just going to abuse my position as the host to just talk to you, Blunty. We could have this conversation offline, but like 3 of the people out there watching are interested. If I have a bind and fly that was sent to me, it's a new bind and fly, and I'm doing a review of it. Therefore, there is no plausible argument that it was made before the cut-in date. And it doesn't have standard remote ID because the Chinese manufacturer didn't give a flip.
Here's the problem, okay? We have to decide. This is really stupid, but follow me, okay? The rule says a manufacturer must have a complete drone. Any drone that's for use in the United States airspace. Okay, I believe that's how it's worded. Okay. What if they consider the drone that they sent you to bind and fly to not be a complete drone? And you're continuing the manufacturing by flying it, by adding the battery. Now you're the manufacturer, and you would have to have standard remote ID on that drone. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so there's two ways to look at this.
Yeah.
One way to look at this is they failed. They sent you a complete drone, and you're just doing the best you can to fly it. Another way to look at it is they sent you a non-complete drone. You're completing it by putting binding a receiver on it and adding a module and doing all the things to it, right? And that means you're the manufacturer in this case, not them. So this is how interpretation of law, nobody has an answer. The FAA hasn't answered on this. The FAA hasn't gone after any companies like Rotoride or other companies that are selling drones that are complete but incomplete because they don't have standard remote ID. It's a whole thing, you know.
So let's wrap it up then. Although again, the chat is really enjoying listening to you rant, so kudos. But I think maybe we could wrap it up by saying that there isn't a clear answer in the rule to these exact questions, and the best thing you can do is try to cover your bases.
So,
however, it's at least somewhat plausible that a 107 operator inside of FRIA, including a racing pilot who's racing for a prize, that might not need remote ID.
From the direct reading of the rules, there is no part of the rule that says that FRIA only applies to recreational. Doesn't exist. I can tell you that right now.
Okay.
So the only way it would exist is by assumption that standard remote ID still applies to module-based remote ID in that environment.
I'm getting confused with registering the drone. Like with registering the drone, there's an exemption for recreational, and therefore by exclusion, 107 has to register or something. What do you know what I'm thinking about? I thought there was something like that. We
fly under an exception, but yeah, FRIA doesn't dictate that. FRIA lives inside of its own part, and that part applies to all UAS, as far as we can tell. Again, I'm not a lawyer. We're not lawyers, so we don't have a lawyer under the employ of FPVFC. So
yeah, okay, great, fair enough. One IFPV says if a cash prize caused you to be a 107 op, then all pilots at multi-GP races would need a 107. Yes,
that's correct. That's how the rules work.
Yes, that's the rule.
You get it.
A lot of 107 now, to be fair, like when I go to a Knoxville multi-GP race, I mean, shoot, Evan Turner had a box of broken drones that he was giving out as bonus prizes. Like he's like, anybody who wins this heat gets to pick one drone from the box of broken drones. Congratulations, that's a 107 flight now. And yes, they're all supposed to have 107s. Well, technically, no. Hang on. You could have a 107 operator there who was the pilot, pilot in command.
Pilot in command. Yep.
So, like, I could be standing next to you as you fly and saying, this is a 107 flight, but I'm your PIC. So the fact that there were probably 5 or 7 people standing around any multi-GP race who happened to be 107s, at any point, if anyone asked, they'd be like, oh, no, I'm the PIC. And you'd be good to go. But technically, you are supposed to have a 107. Last thing, if you're flying indoors, all of this is out the window because the FAA has no jurisdiction in Fort Kickass. Indoors. Moving on. Any opinion on the Jumper T Pro V2 Express LRS, €249? Didn't I review that? Didn't I review the Jumper T? No, I didn't. I'm sorry. That's the T20. But I did review the Jumper T Pro. I did review it. Yeah. Now, this isn't the V2, it's the V1. This kind of looks like a cross between a TBS Tango and a DJI FPV controller. What even happened? I paid $300 for this animation.
What's a man got to do? What's a man got to do? Touch a woman leg. What's a man got to do? To get a woman leg.
The Jumper T Pro is the best radio that
Because that was a Tango and a DJI controller. Get it? Get it? I paid $300 for that animation, and by God, I'm going to get my money's worth out of it. Got 67,000 views. I mean, that's pretty good. Oh. Okay. I think the T Pro V2 fixed one of the... I had a complaint about the switch, one of the switches. I think they fixed that, but it's okay. It's okay. If you want that form factor, it's not bad. That's my short version. It's not bad. They fixed, I think, the latching switch. Now it has a... It originally didn't have a latching switch, which I really didn't like. And does it go up to 1 watt? I think... does it go up to 1? I think it goes to 1 watt. I can't remember. Does it not say? Psh, doesn't say. Yeah, 1 watt. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. John Hickson, thank you for 10 Canadian dollars. You've been pretty vague about where you've been disappearing to and that the hobby is changing. Is there a future where we get to know what you've been up to, and would it be a long time? You never know. It's not as, like, I joke about, the next Transformers movie is going to be amazing. I teach people how to fly drones, right? Well, sometimes I do it on the internet, and sometimes I do it off the internet. That's the short version. Exactly, who I'm working for and where I'm going and what I'm doing. That's the kind of thing where, when somebody hires you, you don't just go talk about your work. Like, sometimes it's public facing, but sometimes it's not. So, you never know. But, no, it's not really public facing stuff where I would already be talking about it. Hopefully that's the answer to your question. Thank you for a $10 super chat. Fabio Pansera. Oh, hey, Fabio. Thank you. Thank you for 10 Swiss francs. I would just like to point out that Joshua has a Patreon, and 1% of the money will be invested to get spare parts for my drone career. Terms and conditions may apply. Everything could be bollocks. Thank you, Fabio. Yes. A fair amount of your Patreon money goes straight to Fabio, who edits my videos. Kristaps Andresons, thank you for a €5 super chat. As a journalist and your patron, how do I interview you for my news show, for your expert opinion on the stuff you won't cover here? I don't. Every so often, I think to myself, I should, be more giving with my time to people who ask me to do interviews and so forth. And the bottom line is I almost always don't want to. And I'm an introverted person, which is weird considering that my career. But the difference between an interview or a podcast and this is that I just get to cut it off whenever I want, and then it's over. And, going, I don't know, it's different. So, like, I don't know. You can message me, I don't know, message me on Patreon, I guess, and we can talk about it, but no promises. I actually really don't like doing that kind of stuff. Like, usually when I do it, it's okay. But I almost never want to do it. Yeah. Because, like, there'll be a time when I have to show up and sit down, and I'll, like, have to, I don't know, it just feels like work. This feels like work. I don't like it. I'll be a little more honest even than that. Here's what I'll say. And I want you to understand I'm being really sort of frank here. When something makes me make that face and go, "Oh, this feels like work," the next thing I do is I charge money for it. And then I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm working, but at least I'm getting, making money." And it's really rude when someone comes and says, "Hey, do you want to appear on my podcast?" And you go, "Yeah, I'll pay my hourly rate." I won't do that. Almost. Like if someone says, "Hey, I have a company," like once upon a time someone said, "I have a monthly subscription service related to drones. Will you come present to my subscribers?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, but you got to pay me my hourly rate." Because like you're selling my service to your customers. And I think it's fair for me to ask you to compensate me for that. But if it's just like, "Hey, I have a podcast, will you come on it?" I'm not going to charge you for that. But then also it makes me make that face and then I don't want to do it. So I don't know. It's a dilemma. So I don't know. I appreciate your patronage. I appreciate your very courteous request. Message me and we'll talk about it, but know that my fundamental feeling about it is to be like, oh, you never know. James Thomas. So I want to build a hot rod 4-inch Apex Micro. So Tommy's Aerolite 2004 motors or Brother Hobby TC 2004 motors. Tommy's Aerolite motor surely is better. I got to tell you, the Brother Hobby TC 2004 is not a bad motor, but Brother Hobby doesn't make like the most premium motors. They're good motors for the money. The Aerolite is presumably made with care in Umagod's own factory or whatever. Oh, for all I know, Brother Hobby OEMs the Aerolite. I don't know. If I had to bet, I bet the Aerolite is like a more carefully crafted motor, but I don't know that for a fact. I would tell you for 4-inch, I would go up to 2005 or maybe even 2205. I think 2004, if you really have the lightest possible 4-inch, but those 2004 motors have 2mm shafts, and the 4-inch props put a lot of leverage on those shafts. You will break those motors so fast. And if you can go up to a motor with just a little bit bigger shaft, I think you're going to have to go up to a 22mm motor. I don't think a 2005 would do it. Maybe it would. I'm not sure. But I believe a 2005 would have the same bearing as a 2004. And so it would have the same shaft diameter, I think. So go up to something like a 2205, and I think you're going to get way better performance unless you're super concerned with weight. But you said hot rod, so I don't think you're super concerned with weight. So get 2105. Perfect. 661 FPV. Perfect. Does that have a 3mm shaft, though? Yeah, 2105. That's really good. That's one step up. Because 2205 was feeling a little bit big to me. I couldn't think of a motor in between right here off the top of my head. That's a great choice, is the RCM Power 2105. For a 4-inch prop, fantastic choice. And it's got a 5mm shaft, 5mm prop mounting, so presumably it has a 3mm shaft. And that's going to significantly increase the durability of the motor. I mean, you're still going to break it, but it's going to be harder to break it. Does have 12x12 mounting, so be aware of that. Okay. Torpedo Law. Okay, you have my attention. You had my attention. Now you have my interest. What's the line from? He says $2,500 cash to show up at my birthday for 30 minutes. Yup, that'll do it. That'll get me out of bed. I know you're just joking, but if you're not joking, that's that's way over my threshold. I'll do an hour for 2,500. Shoot, for 2,500, I'll come all day. He's just joking, though. He's not serious. Are you serious? Leonard Glenn, thank you for a $20 super chat. Let's see if we can find a message from you. Leonard Glenn says, I'm a 107 pilot, and I believe blah 107 requirements. Love your videos. Everything I know about beta flight is from watching your videos. Thank you, Leonard Glenn. Cloudhopper, thank you for a $10 super chat. Cloudhopper asks, I started with brushed whoops in angle mode, finally flying brushless whoops in acro mode. What do you suggest for backyard freestyle? Maybe a 2-inch? Yeah, Cloudhopper. If you're flying 65mm whoops and you want to go the next step up in terms of acro performance, like the Flywoo Nano Baby 2-inch, I really like that one. Flywoo Nano Baby 2-inch would be a great place for you to go for a little backyard ripper. Alex Neal, thank you for a $30 super chat. It's very generous, $30 super chat. You could probably get like 3 minutes of my time at your birthday party for. No wait, what does it work out? What does the numbers work out to? Do you have an OnlyFans account? I do, but it's not under my name. You have to find it. You'll have to track it down. If you do find it, don't share it. It's a secret just for you. There's a little taste of what you're going to get. Yeah. There you go. $30. That's what you get for $30. People have broken people. People are wondering how many chargers I have on the back. I have 4 chargers on the table behind me. That's not going on the Livestream Clips channel, is it, Blunty?
That's 50-50 how I feel today when I pull it.
I'm surprised it's that high. Fantastic. If you see what's his name with the $2,500, chiming in, make sure you get his info, okay? All right, we're caught up on the super chats, so great. Let's go back to the regular chats. I've hurt myself. What's the reason people recommend switching the walk snail goggles transmit antenna to a patch antenna? Is it better in every situation, or are there some situations where Omni's better? The thinking is this, Trevor. Because the link is bidirectional, if the acknowledgement packets from the goggles don't get back to the VTX, then the link is failed. So just having you pick up the signal from the quadcopter is only half of it. You have to get your data back from the goggles to the video transmitter. And therefore, if you have an Omni antenna on the TX and on the TX output, then you're basically limiting yourself to the range of the Omni antenna. So I don't know if that's like universally true, because if you put a patch antenna on the TX, then you're limiting the range behind and to the side of you. But I don't know. I don't know if it's universally true. It's hard to know for sure because it depends a lot on like where you're flying relative to where you're looking. McShaky wants to know, is there a way to keep a FRIA off the map when you don't want your private property displayed? No. The reason my house isn't on the FRIA map yet is presumably because Alex Suarez hasn't updated it yet since I got approved.
Well, there's also a FAA official one, and yeah, they just update it every now and then. I don't think it's automatically pulled from any constantly updated database. I think it's some guy's job to every now and then go put them all on there.
All FRIAs are public. Access to the FRIA is not public. If the FRIA is private property, you still can't go onto the property. But the existence of the FRIA is public information and can't be like privatized.
Yeah, and just while we're, for context, to anybody who wants to know, there's also a private version of a FRIA, which happens through a direct document you write with the FAA and a deal you make. The AMA does these for fields that are especially inside of airspace restrictions where they already have deals for fixed sites. So if you are somewhere where there is a FRIA, or what seems like a FRIA, people could fly without remote ID, but they require you to be in a club, or it's not listed on a map, or whatever, that could be a reason, because it's a private deal with the FAA, just so you know.
Typical. The AMA has a special deal. HD0 Whoop Light VTX will not transmit a signal till I arm the quad. Any suggestions on how to fix? Yeah, that's low power disarm. So I'm not 100% sure about this. In fact, if this fixes it, please get back to me and confirm this for me. But in beta flight, you've got in the video transmitter tab, you've got the low power disarm option. If you turn that on, what's supposed to happen is that the VTX stays at low power until you arm and then goes to full power. But what I've noticed is that some HD0 VTXs seem to just not work at all until you arm. And I think it's the low power disarm option that's doing it. So test that. Go to the video transmitter tab, make sure low power disarm is turned off, and see if that fixes it. Or if that doesn't fix it, come back to me and say, no, that option wasn't on at all. Like, email me and tell me and follow up. Be like, hey, we talked about this on a live stream. Because I'm trying to gather data, because I've noticed this too, but I haven't been able to kind of pin it down. I'm going to take this question from Jason Aviator, because number one, he's a patron, so he's in the Discord. And number two, he says, help, please! And usually that means I'm like, oh, whoa. No, God, people are just going to shout, help, 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 please. In hopes that they get their questions higher priority. Today, I was flying Express LRS 2.4 using my TX16S at 250 milliwatts at approximately half mile out, 2,000 plus feet from my position. TX16S started warning me RF signal critical. That's an RSSI. My goggle video was solid and the quad maneuvered per inputs, but I flew the quad back, but I was concerned by the warning. I think that it's likely that the RF critical threshold for the TX16S is not correct for Express LRS. How do you change it? How do you fix it? That's a different question. Set that aside. But what I would want is I would want to have RSSI DBM, LQ, and ideally also SNR in my on-screen display. And if the radio is saying RF signal critical, but I look and my LQ is 100, probably don't care. Now, I don't know if you can change that threshold. I think you can, but it's been a long time since I jacked with it. I think you could change the RSSI threshold where RF signal critical gets generated. And basically, if you're running Express LRS, I would just turn that all the way down to 0 or whatever, so it just doesn't go off anymore. Okay. Help, please! I have a 6S 5-inch with an F722. What seasoning should I put on my brisket? I would go like salt, obviously. When I do pork, I don't do brisket. We have a quarter cow in the freezer. I'm going to be doing some brisket soon. I got to think about this. If I were doing like a pork shoulder, I would do salt, garlic powder, probably onion powder, probably also some actual onions in the slow cooker. Onion powder though. Molasses. Paprika. I'm blanking on some stuff. A little tomato sauce, crushed tomato maybe, tomato paste, depending on how thick you want it. Pepper, of course. Little bit of maybe red pepper flakes. I don't know if unless my kids are eating it. Just do like a barbecue. I'm always torn on garlic and onion powder because, like, I would rather use fresh minced onion and fresh minced garlic. Like, the powders are really... But, like, on the other hand, like, you add the powder and it really sort of impregnates the food. And you don't end up with, like, chunks of actual garlic in your meat, which people don't always like. Brown sugar, yes. Molasses, yes. Of course, brown sugar is just molasses and sugar. Anyway. I know there's more ingredients I put in but I don't have them off the top of my head. Salt and pepper only. Blah, 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 blah. I'm making barbecue pork. It's going to have barbecue. You eat what you want to eat. You know, people are saying salt and fire only. Salt and fire only. It's funny you say that. I recently was gifted a chef's table dinner at this local restaurant called Fire and Salt. Like 5 courses. The chef literally just came and cooked right here at the bar. Gave us the food. Was amazing. Was amazing. I never would have bought this for myself. It was a fantastic gift. Don't buy... if you try and buy me a gift, it's better to do something like this than to buy me like a thing, because I probably have really specific requirements for the things that I buy, and then I buy them myself, and you'll never get it right. So, this was the first... okay, I'm not going to say the first. I usually don't like scallops, because they're usually not cooked correctly. And I would say I don't like scallops. But these were perfectly cooked scallops on grilled pineapple with quinoa, with a honey, with jalapeno infusion. Delicious. That's course 1. Course 2 was a salad. That's fried prosciutto with strawberry balsamic. This was a risotto with mozzarella and like a pesto, and on the bottom it's a mushroom. It's a red pepper and it was a lion's mane mushroom in a butter sauce. Unreal. There's the main course. That was a lamb shank, carrots, mashed potato, dessert. Oh, it's a panna cotta with strawberry and lemon, and with some gelatin to make it set up. Was an amazing gift that someone got me, and yeah. Prosciutto. Oh, I'm doing good on all the other words too. Amazing. Prosciutto. Prosciutto. Right? That's how you say it. Gabagool. Anyway, Fire and Salt. Just happens to be the name of that restaurant. Let's see. How would you tune a 5-inch as a new pilot? I wouldn't. I would just fly the defaults until you become a better pilot. You're wasting your time PID tuning as a new pilot. You don't know what to look for. You don't know how a quad's supposed to fly, and you're not able to really fly it very well anyway. So how are you going to PID tune it? You're not. Just fly the defaults and become a better pilot. Jay Spin, I do pork shoulder in the slow cooker. I don't have a smoker. Can you do brisket? I think brisket really wants more of a dry process, but I'm not like a brisket guy. Like, it feels to me like I would do brisket in the oven, not the slow cooker. Crazy Sam says, I just switched from Crossfire to ExpressLRS on the same UART and I don't get any response. What caused this issue? I'm assuming it's Betaflight or iNav and not ArduPilot, right? With ArduPilot, there can be an issue with the baud rate that causes it to not work. I'm going to guess that's not what you're talking about, though, and I'm going to guess you wired it up wrong. You wired it up wrong, or it's not bound. But you should be able to just drop it in with identical wiring. No problem, no question. Thank you, DHB, for a $2 super chat. I'm sorry, Fabio. You know I had to. You knew I was going to do it. I can't take a compliment is the real thing. You know what's Fabio is? He's a quite sensitive and thoughtful guy. Not at all the stereotype of the hot-blooded Italian. I mean, he gets worked up, don't get me wrong. But when he gets worked up, he doesn't yell. I don't think I've heard him yell. How many chargers do you have total? I have 4 on the bench and 1 in my travel kit. And probably like 1 or 2 others just sitting around that I don't use. How many pee bottles does it take to drive from Mayhem to North Carolina? Thank you for a $5 super chat, Land Squid. You would know, because I sure don't. I stop at gas stations to pee. I'm not a bottle peer. You know, speaking of peeing in bottles, this was... well, I have to tell the story now. I was debating whether to tell it. I have to tell the story. I was on a Rotor Riot shoot once, and me and whoever were in the front seat of the car, and Drew Camden was in the back seat of the car. And he says, I really have to pee. I don't think I'm going to make it. Do you guys care if I pee in this Gatorade bottle? And just as we both said, yeah, no, we're almost home. Drew, we're like 3 minutes from the house. We hear the sound of the pee starting. We hear the sound of him peeing in the bottle. And we're like, why did you ask? Why did you ask? If you were, well, you just said, hey guys, I can't make it. I'm going to pee in this bottle. But it was like, hey, do you care? Do you care? And we were like, well, actually, too late. He was already peeing in the bottle. We really were like 3 minutes from the house. He definitely could have held it. Anyway. Fabio, I believe Ciotti is actually Italian. But I don't know if he's like, so I don't know if he like speaks Italian. I like telling that story because I think most people from Drib's public persona would not guess that that's the kind of thing he would do. So I like telling that story. Empire FPV says, I have an issue with my OSD on my DJI goggles too. My satellites aren't showing. Showed on my V2 goggles, but not on my G2, running Betaflight 443. I'm going to guess that it showed 14 sats on your V2 goggles. There was a quirk in the V2 goggle OSD with DJI where if you had no sats locked and the GPS wasn't working at all, it would show 14 sats. Why? I don't know. So my guess is that your GPS has never worked, but you didn't know because like your OSD wasn't working right. And now you've got a different OSD and it's working right. So I think you should try to fix the fact that your GPS isn't working. That's what I would say. And if I'm wrong about any of that, feel free to email me and I'll try and work it out with you in more detail. Danerfish asks, what do you think I can get for around $700? About 4 minutes of my time. No, I'm joking. That's an ongoing joke throughout the live stream. Danerfish has no idea what I'm joking about. Already have a Radio Master Zorro and looking to get a quad, goggles, battery charger. What do you think? Like for a quad, let's think. Goggles is going to be the hard one. I think you're going to find it hard to get goggles for less than $400. Obviously, you can get some really bargain basement analog goggles or for around $100. They're not that great, but they will get you in the air. You can get used goggles in the $350 range. But like if you are like not trying not to just sort of throw money away on cheap stuff that you're probably going to outgrow, you're going to spend $300 to $500 on goggles. That's really, there's not a lot of wiggle room in there. Like maybe if you're really lucky, you'll find an old pair of goggles for $250 used that'll get her done. But like $300 to $500 is really where goggles are at, and you can spend more if you want. Brooklyn Otter points out the Fat Shark Recon HD gets you walk snail for under $300. Valid. Super Deluxe suggests you buy the DJI V2 for $300. The DJI V2 Super Deluxe is harder and harder to find. Open box Integras are $280 from Best Buy. Yeah, so $300. So like, ironically, some of the cheapest goggles you can get today are DJI Integras. If you can find open box Integras, they're under $300. New, I think they're still like $350. So, what a weird world where DJI goggles are the budget choice, but like Goggles X are more expensive than that. HD0 goggles way more expensive than that. So, out of that $700, let's say that $350 of it gone for goggles. Now you're down to $350. Now you need a quad, batteries, and a battery charger for $350. That's not a 5-inch. That's not happening for a 5-inch. Like, there are a couple of 5-inch bind and flies you can find for $300 to $350, but they're analog. They're not DJI. A DJI 5-inch bind and fly, $500. So, and don't go buy used, because used quads, who knows? They could be crashed, beat up. Who knows? So I think that you're looking at, like I said, a DJI Integras. But then what's your quad going to be that has an O3 air unit on it? And how expensive is that going to be? It's not going to be a tiny whoop. That's a tough one. 661 FPV, I agree with you. For $700, I think the way to go is analog quads and micros. So find yourself a set of analog goggles in the $300 to $400 price range. Get yourself a tiny whoop for $100, $120, and then you have a ton of money left over to get batteries and charger and other accessories. You could even spend like $500 on the goggles. Go ahead.
I think the one thing I would say here is, like, if you know you're needing to be under a budget, I think you should consider, like, are you going to be under a budget in a month or 2 months or 3 months or 4 months? Like, do you have more money, or is this it for a long time? Are you getting a stipend, or like, because like I see a lot of especially younger kids get in and they only have a certain amount of money that they get like on Christmas or something.
Right.
And then like if you break the thing, you just don't have the thing anymore. Like you maybe don't have the money to buy, or you have to beg somebody for money, or you have to go do work for it, or you're not expecting the cost, right? So like analog and tiny whoops is definitely going to be also cheaper to keep going, to upgrade, to change things. But if you know you're going to have money later, you have a job or whatever, like it might make more sense to get into digital and then know that you can spend X amount later and progress that way too. I think that's something people should consider.
Absolutely. Yeah, the thing to keep in mind, just to say the exact same thing you did slightly differently, FPV is not a one-time expense. It's not like I bought a gaming PC and now that's my gaming PC for the next 5 years. That's the computer I've got now. It's like 5-6 years old. Still gets the job done. Don't care. I'm going to just run it into the ground. It requires, you're going to break things. You will need a slow, steady drip of cash to stay in the hobby. And with micros, you know, it's a lot smaller of a drip. With 5 inches, man, every time I just went out and I did that bridge freestyle, broke a motor, maybe an ESC, don't know which yet. I wasn't even flying that hard. Just had one. It was when I landed. It was when I hit the cross piece and landed on the I-beam, and then fell to at that point. That exact impact killed a motor or killed the ESC. Don't know which yet. And I was like, great. There's between $25 and $80. Done. Out the window. Every time I go fly, it's $50. Something. I break something between $50 and $100. Every time not every time I go out in my backyard and just fly a pack, but every time I go somewhere and fly and try and actually do some shit that's worth doing, boom, $50, $100. It doesn't have to be that bad, but it is an ongoing expense. And if you're a one-time cash infusion, you got to figure out how you're going to spread that out. Let's see here. Calibrated my 4S 1500 milliamp hour LiPo in Betaflight, but it still says 3.5 volt low VAT as soon as I arm. Thank you for $5, Cold Front and Penguin. Are you saying it reads 4.2 or 4.1 volts correctly and then you arm and it drops to 3.5? Because if so, that battery's dead. It's just wore out. That much sag means the battery's just wore out. You just retire the battery. It's wore out. It's done. How did it get wore out? Well, most commonly by over discharging it. Like if you ever killed it and resuscitated it by charging it back up again slowly, that's why. It's a new battery. Okay. And does it read 4.1 or 4.2 volts when you first plug it in? Cold Front and Penguin? That's the next question. Yes, it reads. And then as soon as you arm, it drops to 3.5. Something is causing that voltage drop. A bad solder joint could theoretically cause it, although I don't think that's super likely. If it was the cell count, Brecky, then he wouldn't read 4.2. So it wouldn't read 4.2 when you first plugged in. Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be worth it to look not just at the cell voltage, but the pack voltage in the OSD and look for a discrepancy.
Is voltage scaling linear, or do you have to get the number right? Like, you know what I mean? If you get the number right at any voltage, is it always right all the way up and down? Or if you mess up enough of the numbers,
see what you're asking.
Will it scale incorrectly?
No, I think it scales correctly. If you get it right at any voltage, it scales correct. Because it's a voltage divider, so it is simply taking a percent of the voltage on the other side of the divider. And as long as you have the ratio correct, it will be correct. Like perhaps there's some limit effect down close to 0 volts. Like probably there's some limit effect down near 0 volts where it becomes uncalibrated, but I don't think most people are ever down there. Yeah, a voltage divider is a straight linear division of the voltage in divided by X equals out. And so once you get, if you calibrate at any point on that line, I think you get it correct. So if it only drops voltage when you arm, that means that there is a high resistance, something with high resistance in the path. And the current flow then results in voltage drop. The good news is that anything causing that much voltage drop is probably also dissipating heat. So like you could look for something getting hot, unusually hot. That's something to think about. It makes me wonder if you've... No, never mind. Never mind. Daniel Quiros wants to know, my friend sold me his old Beta Pavo 30. I've run it with the DJI Goggles 1 and the DJI Controller 1. It works great, but I want to build my own. Should I use the Cadix Vista or the O3 Air unit? Or change for all? If you have the V1 goggles, then you can't use the O3. And if you're trying to build, what size are you trying to build? Is you trying to build something the size of the Pavo? A naked Vista is the way to go. But if you're trying to build a 5-inch, a regular Vista is the way to go. James DeHaan wants to know, I finally upgraded to the Boxer Max from a FlySky system after 5 years. Is binding espresso is always that infuriating? I don't find it infuriating. I find it quite methodical, and it works most of the time. But I'm not normal.
Can I just... Yeah. This is where we got to give the general ExpressLRS tip, because everybody gets confused here. Okay, open your ExpressLRS Lewis script, look at the top right corner, and see if you have a dash or a C. Mm-hmm. It's so often that I help people, and they're like, it works sometimes, it doesn't work the other times, I don't know what to do. And then it's because you have the arm switch the wrong direction or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? You won't... there will be a dash if you don't have binding, a flashing C if you have an error at the top and you can clear the error, like the arm switch being wrong or model match error, and then a solid C if you're actually bound. And then from there, you can go either direction and figure out what's actually wrong. Because intermittent things are typically like either confusion, like I didn't know my arm switch was the wrong direction or something, or they're like actually wiring or something else is the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good tip. I got a super chat here, a $10 super chat from SM. Thank you so much for your donation. I'm doing this backwards. I know. I'm an idiot. Okay, fair enough. I got a Darkstar 20, TBS Crossfire, and waiting on Goggles 3 reviews before opening them all. In 2024, would you do the Tiny Hawk 3 Plus HD Freestyle for $600? Or the Tiny Go 4K for $400? Oh, man. Tiny Hawk 3 Plus HD. Is that the HD0 one? No, he's talking about the goggle, DJI. Does the Tiny Hawk 3 come with DJI? No. I can't be talking about the Tiny Hawk 3. What am I missing? Does it come with the O3? He says he's got the Tiny Hawk. He says he's got the Goggles 3 reviews before opening them. But he's asking about the Tiny Hawk 3 Plus HD Freestyle. Oh, okay. Tiny Hawk 3 Plus HD Freestyle. Is that O3? Or is it HD0? I found the HD0 one. That's HD0. So that's not going to bind to the Goggles 3. I don't think I'm breaking my NDA if I say that DJI didn't put HD0 compatibility in the Goggles 3. But they didn't. And I don't understand how you think it's $600. This is not a $600 drone. This can't be the drone you're actually talking about. So what drone are you actually talking about? I don't know. TinyGo 4K. Are you just talking about a bind and fly kit? Huh. I'm not sure. I would usually take an Emax bind and fly over the GetRC TinyGo. Not that the GetRC TinyGo is bad, but I think the Emax drone is better. But I'm not sure what drone you're asking me about. Thank you, Ian Bible, for $10. I don't know why, but I appreciate your donation. He's asking, should I get the Tiny Hawk and the Freestyle or the Tiny Go as a beginner before opening all the DJI gear? I'd take the Tiny Hawk, personally. Spang FPV wants to know, what's the penalty for using Crossfire 900 megahertz antennas on a 2.4 gigahertz? No! The penalty is no! The penalty is stop! Don't do it. That's like asking, what's the penalty for putting, diesel fuel in my car instead of... Okay, that's not quite that bad because it won't blow anything up. What's the penalty for stabbing all my tires with an ice pick and letting the air out on my gas mileage? No, do not use a 900 megahertz antenna on a 2.4 gigahertz receiver. The penalty is no. Because no. Jumpstart wants to know, is there any modern FPV camera that can do horizontal mirror mode? I'm 99% sure the Runcam Phoenix 2 has a flip mode that does horizontal and vertical. Because I was working with this guy and he installed his camera upside down and I had him flip it and we were so happy for a minute, but then when he went to fly, his left and his right were reversed and he was like, what the heck? So... let's see. Andrew CI wants to know, are there any differences in efficiency if I decide to use a 4S battery instead of a 3S and limit the throttle on the radio? Is there any difference in the current draw, etc., etc., etc.? There's a lot of questions in here. I don't know if I'll get to all of them. I would think it would be less efficient to use a higher voltage battery and then use RPM limiting. I would think it would be slightly less efficient.
Yeah, real quick. Can we just say, don't limit the throttle on your radio?
Right. Use the motor output limit.
You need the motor output limit in Betaflight, and then let your throttle be normal.
Correct. That is correct. Thank you for catching that. Because if you just limit the throttle, then the motors will still be able to go to full throttle, and the RPM will be crazy high. What's the best way to improve flight time on a 5-inch? Reduce weight. That's not the sexy answer that everybody wants to hear, but that's the answer. Reduce weight. Most 5 inches, obviously, if you've got an ultralight racing drone or a long-range rig, then you're the exception. But a lot of people who build 5 inches, they put a bunch of crap on them. TPU this and extra that, and they're super heavy. And if you cut 50 grams or 75 grams off the weight of your 5-inch, you will be surprised at how much longer your flights are and how much better it flies. And if you cut 100 grams or 150 grams off it, you won't believe the difference. After you cut weight, the next thing to do is to go with a bigger battery. And then go easy on the throttle. Those are the things you can do. But like the best way to improve flight time is to go to bigger props. But you've constrained us to 5 inches. So Let's see here. Drones and FPV says, I'm not sure if you got to my question on the last live stream. I fell asleep. What question is it? What about indoor whoop races? Is that the question, Dronesen? Indoor whoop races have nothing to do with the FAA because the FAA doesn't regulate indoor spaces. FPV announcer wants to know how I'm getting on with my race gow times. I'm still around about the 60th percentile every week. I haven't gotten any better, or if I have gotten better, everybody else has gotten better too. So I'm having a good time. So that's something. Here is a super chat from BadRx. Thank you for $5, BadRx. What is the best 2S 2-inch micro quad for expressorless analog freestyle in small backyards, or the best micro for freestyle in general, bind and fly? Okay, BadRx, it's a good thing you said bind and fly, because if you hadn't said bind and fly, I would be obligated to say, Odonata, it's the Odonata! But I don't know that Odonata makes a bind and fly 2-inch, do they? I'm sure someone will tell me very soon. People love the dang Odonata. Odonata. The Odonata is a micro quadcopter frame that people freaking love. But it's not a bind and fly, so it doesn't fit your requirement. I love I just recommended this earlier, the Flywoo Nano Baby 2-inch. Now, don't put these stupid prop guards on it. Fly it without the prop guards. Flies great. It's available. Well, this is not the analog version. It is available in an analog version. It's very good. 661 FPV. Great choice. The Happy Model baseline. Also very good. Little 2S toothpick. Very good. So those are some suggestions. Andrew CL says, what if you want to use lithium-ion batteries for the energy density, but with one more cell to compensate for the voltage sag? Is that a good idea? No, because you'll still have voltage sag. It'll just be, you'll still be like hurting the batteries. If the voltage is sagging excessively, that means you're hurting the battery. So with a lithium-ion pack, if you hit the throttle too hard and the voltage sags down, the voltage can sag lower without damaging the battery, but the fact that you're hitting it so hard that it's sagging means it's going to come back, it's going to be super hot, it's going to be puffy, and it's going to get damaged. So by raising the voltage, you're just meaning you can damage the battery faster, because now the motors will be spinning at an even higher RPM and drawing even more current. So the right tool for the right job. If you need peak power and high current, use a lithium polymer battery, not a lithium ion. Let's see here. Let's see here. What do we got here? I don't know. 10 minutes till the end of the stream. That's what we've got. Epignator wants to know why quads are built with the props and battery above the frame. Physics dictate the quad would be more efficient at producing lift with the props under the frame. Why is that? Then put the battery under the frame too. Why? Why does that make it more efficient? Pushers? I guess pushers are more efficient because the obstruction in the air column is on the low pressure side, not the high pressure side. That's valid. We have pusher quads, but the problem is you can't land them. People put the battery and the motors on top because they want to land on the belly of the quad. They don't want racing drones and freestyle drones to have landing skids because those just stick out and break off. So that's how we got here. We started with big drones that had landing skids. And then we started doing freestyle and racing and high performance stuff. And landing skids are bad. And we want to just land on the belly of the drone and have the drone be pretty self-contained. So then the motors are now on top and the battery's now on top. Some racers will have the battery on bottom for reasons, but it doesn't relate to efficiency. Put the battery underneath it to hold the props off the ground. Yeah. Then you're landing on the battery, which isn't ideal. Although, like I said, racers do that. Okay. I changed a 2207 motor and noticed it's much smoother on the bench than the other ones. I think it's due to the bells becoming unbalanced from crashes. Can you balance motors? Have you heard of this? Steve, by the time a bell or a shaft is deformed, it is unlikely that most people would be able to get it back sufficiently balanced to make it worth doing. If you are a machinist and you're very, very good at this kind of work, you could theoretically do it. But for someone who isn't like a machinist, I think it's unlikely. I've heard people say, well, you just find the low spot and then you bang it with a hammer. The frickin' motor is spinning at 25, 30,000 RPM. Like, the amount of balancing that you would want to get is not just like, find the low spot and hit it with a hammer. You could probably make it better than it was, but you're not going to get it back like somewhere really good. So I think you're in new bell territory, maybe new bearing territory, but not yeah, Blunty.
I would just say, if you were doing something like that, you'd probably do something similar to a car tire, right? And you would like add the putty like they use the factory instead of trying to bang something out, right?
Yeah, so you need to do dynamic balancing. Yes, you need to spin it and find the high spots and balance it. But the problem I could see is that if it is unbalanced, that means it's deformed. At which point, adding mud to rebalance it, I'm not sure is like the solution, because you've still got issues with the deformed motors. So like if the shaft is bent, the shaft is bent. If you then add mud to balance it, it doesn't seem like you've actually fixed the problem. But yeah, no, you're right. All right. Well, we're coming to the end of the stream. Aaron Ciotti is going to be here. Aaron Ciotti is actually going to be on his channel doing a stream. He starts at 10 o'clock, right about the time that I finish up. In fact, some people say they haven't seen me and Ciotti in the same room and wonder if we're the same person. Some people say they have seen us in the same room and know that we're not the same person. Depends on which one you are. Ciotti's going to be streaming at 10, so definitely keep the love going. He's going to be reading mail, doing batteries, and probably cussing a lot. I think so. Is that Mr. Steele? Did he stop by? One trick horse, one trick pony in the house. Is that really him? He's got a check mark. I can't help but think it's not really him, though. What's up, Miss?
That's him.
Mr. Steele. That's really him. Damn. Yeah, he is a one-trick pony. One trick being a good pilot. That's his only trick. Actually, that's not even true. He's a two-trick pony. He's a good pilot, and he's apparently a very, very good driver. People don't know. Well, some people know. That Porsche he has is not just for show. He knows how to hoon it. He is a racing instructor. Ciotti knows. He's been driving with him. Thanks for stopping by, dude. Which of Steele's cars is... If Steele had to pick one of his vehicles to keep... So he's got the van, the modded van, the car, the work van that he's turned into a camper. He's got the Tesla. I don't know. He may have sold some of these, but since I've known him, he's had the Tesla Model 3, I think it was. He had the Miata. He had a Elise, I think. It was a Lotus for sure. I know, you may have sold some of these, but okay. The Elise, the Porsche GT3. Did you have a BMW recently? If you had to pick one to keep, what would it be? Okay. I'm super chatting Steel at this point. Ciati thinks it's going to be the Miata. It wasn't an Elise. Which one was it? It wasn't the Elise. It was the 6-cylinder supercharged one. I don't know if that narrows it down. 1,000 horsepower Volvo. I do remember. I left that one off. The Exige. It was an Exige. Thank you, FPV announcer. It wasn't an Elise. It was an Exige. He says he would keep the Exige. Ooh. Oh. Oh. Oh, I didn't see that coming. Wait, no. Is he saying he would keep the Exige? Or is he saying the Exige is the one he had, not the Elise? He still hasn't said which one he would keep. If he could only keep one, would it be the Exige? Clarify your position, Steele. Oh, he did mean the Exige. Wow. That's I didn't see that coming. See, a lot of people would have said the Porsche. That's a man of taste right there. That's why he is who he is. Oh, now he's saying the red M3. Never mind. I take it all back. Not a man of taste. He picked a BMW. So disappointed. It was never going to be the Miata, you guys. It was never going to be the Miata. Honestly, the M3 is probably the right choice if you could only have one car. Like, you don't want to drive an Exige around all day as a grocery getter. The M3 is probably the right choice. I was going to be more impressed if he'd picked the Exige, though. Like the BMW, if you want a performance car that's your daily driver, that's clearly the right choice. Okay. But as Brandon Acree says, such a bro choice, like, right? Like a younger man, a different man would have said, damn convenience, I'm picking the Exige or the Miata. It just shows you get in a middle age, dude. You pick the M3. All right, well, that's going to bring us to the end of the stream. Thanks for stopping by, Steele. Appreciate you playing a little game with me. We'll see you guys tomorrow for the news and throughout the month. It's like a Miata. Everyone hates them till they drive one. The BMW. I don't hate a BMW. A BMW is a great car. An M3 is a great car. It's almost, it's a BMW. You know? It's like, I don't know. Maybe I haven't, he says, I hated BMWs till I bought one. I think, yeah, well, I've never owned one. Probably never will. Look at me. I bought a fucking EcoBoost Mustang. What do I know? All right, bye, everybody. Have a great stream, Ciati.